Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. The latest buzz on TikTok is loud budgeting, a trend that has caught the attention of many seeking financial advice. The world of personal finance is constantly changing. New trends and methods to manage money emerge regularly. Now, personally spending 2 decades working in banking and finance, naturally, this trend piqued my interest. Ron, I know you're a big TikTok guy. Have you heard of loud budgeting?
Well, I only do dances, so I don't keep up with that.
Probably not, then.
You know what's funny, Kristin, is every time I build up a little following on TikTok, I get nervous about, all the rumors that the Chinese are getting our information. So then I delete it, then I start over again. So I'm on my third or fourth TikTok. And I've had to learn all the new dances. Anyway, so loud budget, is that when couples yell at each other over the money? Because I know about that for sure.
I'm sure. I think a lot of us know about that. Negative, ghostwriter. So loud budgeting is a unique approach to managing finances that combines elements of traditional budgeting with a modern and social media driven twist. So the term loud refers to the transparency and openness associated with sharing one's budget process publicly. So often this is shared on platforms like TikTok or other social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, etc.
Kristin, I was not familiar until you brought this term up. And I think it's very interesting because we promote and praise everything else, but finances is one of those taboo topics that, I can remember my dad would never even tell me how much he made. I didn't know how much my dad made.
Same here.
It was such a taboo, back then for sure. 70% of Americans recently polled think it's rude to talk about money. And this same 70% agreed that talking about money, even with close family members, is taboo. So it's still going strong.
Right.
Something I did, Kristin, because I'm going to have to adjust if I even considered this, but in Venmo, with my book and the company and all that, a lot of people pay me through Venmo. And as soon as I realized that people could see who was paying me, I blocked mine.
Yeah.
But I find it so interesting. Now, I'm sure it's fun for people because I'll see a glass of wine paying someone back,
Right.
I hope they don't do that for methamphetamine, but
yeah. I don't know if there's an emoji for that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yet.
But I remember blocking mine immediately thinking, I'm not going to let anyone know, who's paying me or who I'm paying. So this one's going to take an adjustment, but there's things about the concept that I like. I mentioned this once before, but I saw such a difference when my daughters were able to access their bank account online because, as you know, Kristin, growing up, you got a statement once a month.
Right.
Well, that doesn't mean anything once a month and you're 20 years old. Who cares until you get the shock of opening the envelope?
Yeah.
But my daughters could look on there and every time they went to lunch, every time they went to dinner, they could see it. And it really did. It was one of the few apps I think was beneficial, but it helped them save money.
Right. I think that's fantastic. So like you, I was raised not to discuss finances, even with my parents. And, I believe on some levels that it can be a hindrance because you just don't have those adult conversations to reflect back on when you're now in the position of having your own bank account and your cards, et cetera. But more on loud budgeting, it's a money-saving technique that involves declining social occasions, such as grabbing dinner with friends or going to that destination wedding that you were invited to. It basically puts your financial goals front and center. So if either of those or anything you're invited to could put your financial goals in jeopardy, you're basically in advance telling the people that invited you that unfortunately you're not going to be able to attend because you have a goal set for yourself, a financial goal set for yourself. And I think that's quite admirable. And I know Just reflecting back, I personally dated somebody who had his own business, made a lot of money, and we went out and we're always adventuring, doing cool things. It got expensive. And I didn't want to say, I can't afford to do that with you. Right. And so I went through a lot of money in my savings account, trying to keep up with the Joneses, if you will. When looking back, I should have just said, either you pay for me or I'm not able to go with you, buddy. Like, this just isn't in the cards for me, right?
He was
But I
going
didn't.
Dutch.
Well, on some things, yeah.
Make him pay, Kristin.
I know. But it was like extravagant vacation, just things like living this lifestyle that I couldn't afford to live. And so, I look back, I'm like, I should have had the confidence to just be honest and say, look, I can't afford to do this with you. Maybe the next one, right? And so I think the transparency aspect, I don't know about blasting it out on social media, but I do like being forthcoming with your friends and family about things like that. And, another thing I remember when I was 19, though, this is a positive. I actually had the confidence. I was saving towards something. And I remember I worked for tips. I was a waitress. I had told my girlfriends, I am not spending any money for the next 3 months. I'm saving up for this trip. And they all knew it. And they knew that I put all my tips that I had earned all away, like literally didn't spend any money. I just went to the gym and worked. That's pretty much it. And I thought it was so cool because they were so supportive of that. And they didn't give me a bad time for not hanging out with them for that period of time. So I definitely think that the transparency aspect is a big positive.
Kristin, I believe in hard work, consistency, you know that, but I do believe that wealth is part mental. And I believe the way you treat money is the way money treats you. And I tell people that. I told you about coaching someone on finances, and I tell people that. How do you treat money? And by the way, if you want to know someone, their deepest, darkest self, if you find out how they spend their money, it speaks volumes.
Right.
I've seen so many people who are insecure. They get a big job. They go put themselves in debt. They get, like you said, keeping up with the Joneses. They're going to buy that Mercedes. They're going to buy that. And they can barely make it. Whereas if they were secure, they would wait, to the appropriate time.
Right.
So finances is a complicated matter, but I absolutely believe that it's part mental in the way you approach finances.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the more I looked into this, again, Kristin introduced me to this. Full disclosure, she introduced me to this concept. I usually know a lot more than her, but in this case,
oh yeah,
it's not jumping on Instagram every day and saying, I spent $10 last night or whatever. It's being open and honest regarding your financial status and goals and how friends and family can help you get there. And that's the public disclosure aspect. I will say that can affect friends because throughout my years, I've had friends I would go out with and they expect you to pay. They expect you to pick up, and if it's a mentor situation, like if I meet a younger person out or something, I do. Like I'm pretty good about that. But when I have a friend that works just like I do, I'm like, that's really odd that they can't pay for whatever they're eating or drinking. So
yeah.
But the level of transparency in a good way is designed to inspire others and create some accountability. If you don't have no sense of accountability in anything, it's hard to develop new habits. And we say that all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like the same as creating a deadline for yourself, especially when you're self-employed. You don't naturally have a deadline all the time. And so you create one for yourself. So it's that accountability that people really crave and need, really. So for those who have chosen to participate in Loud Budgeting online, there's a huge community engagement component to it. And the trend encourages active participation in the financial journeys of others. So you don't always have to be the one who's putting yourself out there, but you can offer advice to people who have decided to do that. And it says, when I was researching this, viewers can comment, offer advice, and share their own experiences. And what that does, that fosters that sense of community around financial well-being. And I think, like so many things, when we stop making it a taboo, I believe that we can become a lot healthier in that area.
Yes, and it seems that people go to one extreme or the other. There was a book
Mm-hmm.
about 7 or 8 years ago that came out called The Secret. I don't know if you remember that, Kristen,
No.
but it really launched manifestation. And there was a friend of mine and her friend, they got into this. They read this thing, they got a group together, they're highlighting, they got sticky notes, they're going to manifest wealth. Literally, they're going to get wealthy by thinking about it.
Wow.
And people that read the book is going to say that I'm underselling, but it really is based on, faith and believing and imagining and all of that. So
Mm-hmm.
I did try to warn them a little bit, but you're seen as a naysayer when you do that.
Yeah,
But
I could see
I do
that.
tell everyone, I certainly believe in manifesting. For me, it's faith.
Right.
And you bring your faith and your hard work and talents and the other things together. I believe that everyone who has any ability whatsoever and not bedridden can be wealthy. I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And the if it takes this loud budgeting, if it takes accountability, whatever it takes, if you're listening to me right now, you need to make a decision. We're going to give you some more tips that you are going to acquire some wealth. I never think money should control you, but I promise you, in a lot of ways, it makes life easier.
Right.
So we've already said it's uncomfortable for some people, but it is important to do the visual representation.
Mm-hmm.
You see it, you believe it. And I will tell you, Kristen, and I know you've done some similar things that we've talked about, but I'm going online. I'm considering leasing my place out because I bought in an area where it's booming and I can make more than double my house payment by leasing it out. And I'm looking
Wow.
at houses that I like. I also get online and look for old Corvettes because I said in my book, I'm going to get my Corvette back. It's the only thing that I miss, the only worldly possession. So I do believe in visual representation or
Right.
manifesting as long as you're doing the other steps that it takes.
Right.
Um, so for some people it depends. A vision board, I'm big on that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to move my vision board. It's behind my camera. I'm looking at it right now.
Nice.
But you may need to write it down. You may need a graph. You may need to go online and look at something every day to keep your
Mm-hmm.
spirits up that you want that. It may take videos, but also it may take TED Talks and learning. Sometimes you got to grow your knowledge base in an industry to get promoted or to move up in wealth. So all of these things
Right.
are important.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. I know this podcast, I know I've talked about it before, the Drew Pruitt podcast. He had a guest on recently and he was talking about when you have a goal, he literally has his goals in a little notebook and he brings it with him everywhere he goes. So his goals are constantly with him. And he got that from a mentor of his who did the same thing. And he said, to himself, I like what this guy has going on. He's a great mentor and I'm going to start doing this myself. And it's a great accountability when you have that right there on you and it's constantly tangible to you. So pivoting here, Ron, with your background in law enforcement and now the thriving coaching business, where one component is addressing finances and mine and banking, there are definitely pros and cons to loud budgeting. So I want to share a few of the pros. I left the cons for you because I know there are some security components to it for sure. The pros, accountability, sharing your financial goals publicly can provide an extra layer of accountability, motivating you to stick to your budget. I've seen people do this when they've started a new diet on social media. They share it publicly, like, hold me accountable, y'all. I'm going to do this. There's also that community support. Engaging with a community of like-minded individuals can offer valuable insights, tips, encouragement. Same premise there. I know you're going to share the cons with us now.
Yeah, I guess I'm a con. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Excuse me. Privacy concerns, and that's the one that I stressed at the beginning of the
Yeah.
podcast. Sharing personal information is number one, people feel violated, but it also can produce safety concerns. I will tell you this, Kristen, about 2 years ago, I did two different pictures. I had hands full of cash. What happened was I sold a vehicle And this person, probably a drug dealer, wanted to pay me cash. So I had all this cash, so I couldn't resist naturally. So I did it, I did it, fanned it out like a deck of cards, and I took a picture, but I wrote similar stuff to what we're talking about how to acquire wealth. Well, I shouldn't have done that because I had people contacting me to borrow money.
Oh my
So that's a
gosh.
component. Be careful how rich you make yourself look online, because you might have an
Yeah.
uncle you didn't even know you had
Oh my
until
goodness. That's
uh,
insane. I don't even, I'm reading this book. My grandma gave it to me in 2001, and it's How to Be a Lady. I glanced through it back then, thought it was hilarious, and decided to pick it back up and look at it. But one of those is that very thing. Like, it talks about borrowing money, and basically a lady never borrows money from friends or family, right? Like, it's like just all of these things that I grew up with, you grew up with, right? But a lot of people just have no shame in their game, and they're just going for it. Oh, goodness
no,
gracious.
that's a
Okay.
fact.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is unrealistic expectations, and this is what I said. The people who read The Secret and just manifest, thought about it and all that, they didn't put the work behind it. They ended up very disappointed and disillusioned.
Mm.
And I've seen this happen numerous times. I even, one time, Chris and I was talking to someone online. We were thinking about going out on a date, and she goes, "Are you a manifester?" That was the
Interesting.
question.
Oh boy.
And imagine answering that one.
Yeah.
I came up with something. I tried to be funny and witty, but it
Yeah.
was, I realized our manifestations were from a different source. Hers was the
Right.
universe, mine was God. And I know that's
Mm.
controversial, but I have all these people, the universe, the universe, the universe. Well, what's that mean?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
that mean exactly?
Right.
And I did have a discussion with someone one time. They kept saying the universe. And I said, "Do you mean God?" And they said, "Well, same thing." I said, "Imagine this. You're on your deathbed. Do you want the universe holding your hand, or do you want a loving, caring God, you know,
Right.
going with you
Right.
on that journey?" So yeah, I'm gonna pick the God that I've read about instead of the universe. So I got off on a
Yeah.
tangent
No, but
there.
it's true that comes up often, and it's very different. Um, and can be controversial. So many different directions to go in that. But I wanted to come back to, okay, so loud budgeting, because there's a scenario I want to share. And loud budgeting represents a contemporary take on traditional budgeting. So incorporating social media, community engagement, we've covered that into the financial management process. So whether or not you should embrace this trend, it really depends on your comfort level with sharing personal financial details. I don't know about you, Ron, but when I'm doing all this research and reading this, and understanding this is a TikTok trend, I'm thinking people that are participating in this are under the age of 30. And I think it may be a great thing for that age range. I don't necessarily see 30 and up doing it. Maybe giving advice, not necessarily saying, hey, I have this much money in my checking account, keep me accountable. So I do find it interesting. But whether or not you should embrace this trend depends on your comfort level. And if you're cool with sharing personal financial details and your willingness to actively engage with online community. There's quite a few factoids. Don't let me end this podcast before I share my story about going on girls' trips.
Oh, why don't you need to share that?
Should
Go
I
ahead.
just jump in?
Jump
So
in.
I wanted to advise everyone, and I feel like most people have probably experienced this on some level. But when you put together a friend's trip, I think it's really important. This is where that loud budgeting should come into play. If you're inviting, say you have a group of 4 gals or dudes, whatever, and you guys are going to, let's say, Vegas or Nashville, somewhere, right? So you're going, it's very important that everybody is at least somewhat on the same page regarding what types of restaurants you want to eat at and what types of entertainment you prefer to partake in, right? Because you may have some that want to go gamble the whole time and spend, very little money dining, right? Or you may have some that want to go to the clubs and that's where all the money is going to go. So you really want to do your due diligence. And if you're being invited, get a good understanding of where they want to eat. Because I know, I've been in situations where I like to eat at nicer restaurants when I'm on vacation, because when I'm home, I cook almost every single meal, right? And so it's not a good thing when you land at your destination and now you're being forced to eat at 1 and 2 star places, right? Because someone else failed to share that they were on a tight budget. Okay. So this isn't being insensitive, it's being transparent and realistic.
No, absolutely. That's something that should be planned before. This is what we're going to do. This is kind of the range. So, no, I think that's important. I just kind of wanted to end with saying, this may or may not be for you, but this is a leadership podcast. You may be managing someone who is in that Gen Z range, 20 to 30, and they may be doing this, or these conversations may come up, and there's nothing that helps you more as a leader is to be relevant and understand what's going on. So there's ways to coach and help people, whether or not you want to do this. And I agree with you, Kristin. I doubt that people over 30, 35 will want to do this based on the stats that we looked at earlier. But there's people, here's the point, and please listen to this if you're still with us. If you are having problems financially, it is time to step away and take a new approach. Look at it differently, approach it differently. And when I said I go on and look at houses, or I'm looking at Corvettes, that's my vision, but I've got a mission behind that. Remember, the mission are the steps to get to the vision. So don't just manifest, but what are my steps? And I was coaching someone, Kristin, and talked them into staying home like 1 weekend a month, because they're going out. And again, they're drinking, doing shots, doing whatever, and to plan some fun things and stay at home. And it was amazing. They had an extra $150 in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it depends where you are, but don't get yourself upside down on cars. Don't get yourself, as they call it, house poor. Try to use a balanced approach and gradually increase, but know your finances, understand your finances, and be good to your money, and it will be good to you.
Exactly. I love that. Couldn't have said it any better. And, being in banking and seeing people's checking account balances and how they spend their money and what kind of car they drive, and then the amount of debt that's equated with it. It's nothing about debt is sexy. So do your due diligence.
Agreed. All right. Well, guys, we sure appreciate everyone. Please like, subscribe, follow up, all of the things that you can do. We really appreciate it. And one of the great things is I have people saying, I told someone about it. They're going to check it out. So that's really cool. And we're still excited to be on this journey.
Heck yeah. There's so many topics that we have ready to cover. So, and if you have one that you would like us to cover, please DM us or put it in our Facebook group, and we will do it.
Absolutely. Be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.